does contract reading, contract breaking at Surgence Labs. What that is, I'll go into a little bit more detail later. Laksa, ready? All okay?
Yep, let's go.
Okay. All right. So basically, it is me running down the basics of what we do at Surgence Labs for the contract reading and contract breaking. So what exactly is this? You might be asking. With the blockchain, all of the information and the code for NFTs, shitcoins, your regardless of whatever other Ethereum and Ethereum layered cryptocurrency, they're all publicly available on the blockchain. You just need to know how to find them, and it's about finding these information and using them effectively. So contract reading, contract breaking is just a term that we use around here in Surgence. If you feel like using source code, understanding the source code or whatever other term, that's fine too. But this is just the term that we use here at Surgence. So what is a smart contract? I will go into a little bit of detail now, but it's a little bit wordy. Bear with me. I will go into less detail and a lot more pictures later on. So basically, a smart contract is basically an agreement. But instead of having lawyers and the jurisdiction that you're in to enforce the contract that you've made, you just use lines of code. So, like I mentioned here, instead of using contracts in real life, you're just having code to enforce the rules. So the benefits of something like this is that when you use code to do law enforcement or essentially enforce the terms of a contract, there is ultimate consistency. So what that means, like I mentioned here, smart contracts execute actions automatically and deterministically, meaning if you determine something to be a certain way, it will happen that way. I specifically put down the meaning of deterministically because the specific term just means that if there is a 95% chance of something happening, then that automatically executes exactly 95% of the time. Okay, so in this scenario, if I have 1,000 pizzas and there's a 95% chance of the pizzas having cheese, that means that 950 pizzas will have cheese in them and 50 won't. So it's exactly word for word, exactly what you're doing. Whatever code that you program, that's exactly what the smart contract executes. So a little bit more, why the smart contract is important. It is actually to remove humans from the equation of decision making. Why? Humans are emotional, humans have thinking brains, humans want to protect their own interests. So what that means is that they are error prone, they can make mistakes, and they will act in ways that is unpredictable. There's pros and cons, but in the case of contracts, you want them to be enforced exactly word for word as is. So now that I've talked about a little bit of the detail about what a smart contract is, I'll just show you guys a little bit of code so that I get you guys a little bit more comfortable as to what and how it looks like. So I've bracketed whatever sections of the code are, and I've also highlighted them in a specific color. So what makes up a smart contract? Smart contracts are just lines of codes that are functions, and they contain if-else functions, and they execute according to if this, else that. So as you can see here, the purple one that is over here, I hope let me see whether, okay. So the purple box over here is just the function name. The red box over here is just the full box of code. It's just a singular function that you're having over here. And then the if-else functions is just if this set condition is satisfied, then do this. Okay? It's a very basic coding terminology. If anybody has any questions right now, let me know. I'll just stop a few seconds for some questions. Okay, I'll just move on real quickly then. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me in the middle of the session. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So, I didn't really explain it here, but what this is actually a slice of the Etherscan page of a contract. Later at the end of this presentation, I actually have a short demonstration. I'll just show you guys in real time what our workflow is like, and then you guys can probably understand better what it is that we are doing here and how it is to read code and interpret code. Specifically, this contract is from PXN. I know we're beating a dead horse, but yes, it's about PXN. So as you can see here, the green box here is the name of the contract. And then on the page, you can actually scroll down and you can actually read the source code. So this is what I mean when the code is all publicly available in the blockchain, and that you just need to know where to search for the information and how to read the information. Most of the information will be actually stored within this red box here. And that's just the main source code that is running the entire contract. So whenever you mint an NFT or whenever you interact with a contract, most of the code is actually stored in the contracts here. It doesn't necessarily have to be this particular file name. It can be anything, but I'm just giving a demonstration over here. So moving on, within the Etherscan page, there's also read contracts and write contracts. So I'll go through them one by one, and again, I will reinforce this by showing you guys a demonstration later. But very quickly, what read contracts are, they are basically the functions that display information that you can read. That also means that you cannot interact with any of the functions that are shown here. These can only be edited or be changed by the contract owner. So all you're doing here is just reading information, therefore they name it reading contract. I know the term doesn't make sense quite a bit of times, but just know that the figures here cannot be edited, they can only be viewed. So moving on, we have the write contract page. This page should look quite familiar if you have been doing a degen mint or you've been degen minting for quite a while. It should not be something that is foreign to you. So for those who do not know, I'll just quickly explain the page. So at the top of the page, this button here shows the connect to Web3 wallet. So when you click on that button, it actually prompts you to connect your wallet, your MetaMask wallet, your Coinbase wallet, whichever wallet that you're using. It actually prompts you, and then you can just connect your wallet to allow you as the user to interact directly with the contract. So in particular, when you're minting a contract, minting a contract is actually one of the most common functions that we have in the NFT space. So in particular, just going to a mint function that shows up on the page, inputting the total amount of ETH that you're looking to pay for the amount of mints that you're making, and you click write, that generally lets you mint the NFT straight away. Okay? So what are we looking for when we are trying to break down contracts? There's generally two things that you're looking for when you're trying to mint an NFT. Okay, I'm just using NFTs in this scenario. If you are looking to mint or do something else, I'm sorry I did not cover that information here, but more or less the procedure of going into the source code still applies here. But let's just go down the NFT route specifically today. So there's actually two things that you look out for within the smart contract. So the first thing is the mint function, and the second one is what triggers the sale of the NFT. The first one is a little bit more straightforward compared to the second. I'll explain a little bit why later on. So the mint function is usually the function within the contract that is usually named mint something. And it generally will allow you to interact with the contract by passing in the amount that you're paying or whatever it is that you're pushing into the contract, and then giving you a NFT in return. So as you can see, I highlighted here this function called SafeMint. This function is a very, very common function that is seen everywhere. It's one of the base functionalities of any smart contract, especially for NFTs. So this is something that you should check for when you are actually minting an NFT that it actually uses this function. So this main function can be easily found in any source code by just using the Control F or Command F in the source code window. So basically the search function, and just typing in mint and then just scrolling through the list of what they highlight. So as you can see here, I'm not sure whether it shows up on your screen, but if you can see here, there's actually a small blue box that actually shows up. When you type in a particular keyword, that keyword is being searched within the contract and it will be highlighted in this blue box in the same way. I apologize if you can't see it, but we will share the slides after the presentation. Then you guys can actually have a look at the slides as well. So that's just the min function. So in particular, when we are trying to find out what triggers a sale of the NFT, we are actually looking at reading what the min function requires to run the function. So in particular, if you can see in this contract, I'm not sure, I forgot what contract this was, but I took it just as an example. As you can see here in plain English, it says requires pre-sale active. And then it says, if this is not true, show me this. So if you go down into the list of variables that they have in the contract, you'll be able to find what pre-sale active is. So as you can see here, it's actually a variable. We call it just call it a thing that is in the contract that's actually declared in the contract. So it's something to look out for. So once you look out for this particular item here, you can then run into the read contract portion to go and check what it is. So I'll be diving a little bit into the technicalities here because it requires me to explain a little bit about what Boolean variables are and what static variables are and all of those stuff. So very quickly, when you see the letters here, BOOL, it just means Boolean. Boolean means true or false. It's a binary choice. It's either a true or a false, a 1 or a 0. This may not necessarily be the case for every single contract because every contract is designed in whatever way that the developer is looking to do so. But in this case, they are using a true or false variable. So what you can do is that you just need to adjust your board to make sure that you're looking out for this thing turning from true to false or false to true. And then it instantly triggers the board functions of your board. So just to quickly round up, what happens is that once you've recorded down your write functions, your read functions, you've recorded down what is the min function, you've recorded down what triggers the sale, you can then input it into your board. In this particular case, I'm using token, but if you have your own board, it works the exact same way. The labels in which they are being put into may not necessarily be the same, but if you spend some time within your board and understand what each function does, it should show up the same way. So all you got to do is just input whatever the min function is into the write method and whatever that triggers the sale into the read method. So I've gone into a little bit of detail about this. Is there any questions before I go on? I'll just stop for a little while for any questions that anybody might have.
No, actually.
Okay.
What language is that?
Okay. So let me just quickly go back to here so that you guys can see the code. Okay. So what language is this? Okay. So in particular, it's called Solidity. It's an offshoot of JavaScript, to be specific. But for most blockchain developers, they're using the language called Solidity, which is specifically designed for smart contracts.
Mm-hmm. So we can't use other than Solidity.
You can use yes, you can use other languages other than Solidity, but the problem here is that you need to find a language that's compatible with the Ethereum blockchain. So the most popular ones that I know of that are not Solidity is Rust. That is the only other one I've heard of. So Rust, JavaScript are the two main code language that I heard of other than Solidity that is being used. But of course, there's also other functionalities that you need to take note of. If you're using something else other than Solidity, it would mean that you will need to understand a lot of technical documentation to make sure that the functionalities can be understood by the blockchain. Okay?
Yeah. And how much knowledge should we have about Solidity to read contracts?
You actually don't need too much knowledge to read contracts. You only need to understand what variables are, how they are named, what happens when particular functions do something. You just need to understand the flow of a contract. You don't necessarily need to understand to be able to code a full contract by yourself. There are resources out there. I can share with them. I can share with you guys the content, the content that I use to read a little bit of Solidity, because by trade I'm actually I'm not a developer by trade, but because when I was in school I learned code, so I can understand code to a certain degree because I took Java classes. It may not be the case for everybody, but I understand that it looks daunting, but you don't necessarily have to read the entire source code. You just need to focus on what you need to read on, which is why I always say you specifically just need to search for the main function and also the trigger function that triggers the sale of an NFT.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah,
the
I have
difference
another
between
question too, but I will wait until then. Maybe you can answer already in the following minutes.
Sorry, I heard another question. Is there any other questions?
the difference between min and safe min?
So the main function that you see here is actually the main function that the people from outside the contract can interact with. Safe min is the one that interacts from within the contract itself. So if you search, right, usually safe min will be within the ERC 721 part of the contract. So it's an internal function. It's just the standardized way of minting an NFT. Does that answer the question?
Hey, I have a
Yes.
question. So, do the 721A and the 1155 contracts follow the same methodology and descriptors?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, so I'm asking if I think someone thought my thing. So I was asking, do the 721A contract, the Zuki one, and the 1155 ERC contract, do they have same structure and descriptors in their smart contracts?
Okay, so I did not go into the 721A portion of this because it's not because I don't want to explain it. It's more of it's not commonly used. I understand that 721A was made popular by the Azuki developers, and that it does help with minting multiple NFTs with more efficient gas. That is what I understand of the 721A contract. I haven't looked into the 1155, but I understand that most contracts follow a similar pattern. I cannot tell you offhand whether is it the exact same because my workflow does not require me to understand whether or not if it's a 721A or if it's a 721 or if it's a 1155. But just know that min functions all function the same way. I've specifically tried not to show you as much code as possible because I just want to show you guys what you need to look for, which is exactly what you need to mint the NFT. I didn't want to, go into detail to show you guys what all of these other codes are because that would mean that I would have to explain a lot of other things. I would rather you guys have an interest in it to go into detail, to go and research a little bit more about what the contract is. But just know that there are different standards. They are generally the same, but there are just minor adjustments over one another. It is not a dramatic change, like completely different. No, it's not the way. It's roughly the same. Okay?
All right, great.
Yeah,
I,
you
I would
just need to.
appreciate if you can drop maybe one or two resources for that.
Sure,
So,
no
like,
problem.
if anybody wants to go into more detail, so
Yeah, sure,
we
sure.
just use
So
it as.
okay, so I'll just quickly say this here now. Anything you need, it can already be found on the Ethereum org website. So I just want to put it out there. So this is not some mind-blowing information that I have it on my own or anything. No, it's all publicly available, and it just needs more visibility on it. Okay, I'll share with that later. I'll share with you guys the information later. Do we have any last questions before I round up about the benefits and the drawbacks?
Yes, can you maybe go into a little bit of detail on how people can identify whether they are minting or whether they are approving some transaction that will drain their wallets?
Okay. So I'll go into detail that one later because I actually have a demonstration. I'll show you guys what happens when you interact with a contract.
Sure,
Would that be better? Yeah, would that be better? Okay. So just to quickly round out this demonstration, this presentation, the minting from contract functionality has a few benefits. So first of all, is when you're interacting with functions of the contract, because you can see the code, you can read it, you can understand exactly what is going on and what is happening when you interact with a specific function. You are reducing your risk because you are verifying the contract and the contract details. This is very important because part of the ethos of cryptocurrencies and crypto in general is to verify, don't trust. Always verify, don't trust. Okay, the second benefit that you have here is that even if the website is down, you still have the ability to mint your NFT. Meaning if you are able to have access to the contract address, or if you're able to find the contract before the mint happens, you are then able to preset your information and let it execute by your bot automatically at a specific time. Okay. There was a previous question about wallet interactions, right? And it's very important that when you mint from contract, it also prevents malicious actors for setting up a website and creating a button for you to click that would then trigger you to approve all transactions. Now that is why everybody recommends that you mint directly from contract, because when you mint directly from contract, you are actually interacting with that function and that function only. Unless you've completely misunderstood that function and that function is the one that screws you over, then that's a separate question. But in general, by reading the contract and then directly interacting with the function, you are reducing your risk of getting drained. Okay? So whatever that I've mentioned today, the drawback is that there is no one standardized format of how they are put onto the blockchain, because the blockchain is open, right? And anybody can input information, anybody can send whatever they want to send onto the blockchain. So this just means that smart contracts are individuals. They are unique to their project that they are at. So this would mean that finding the names of the smart contracts beforehand might be a difficulty. That's a difficulty that some people might have. If you do not understand code, you will have some difficulty in understanding the functionality of the contract. So that's why I suggest you guys to pick up a little bit of coding, just understanding what variables are, understanding what functions are. That's just the bare minimum you need. There's also another drawback when you do interact with a contract on the blockchain that cannot allow you to mint, or if you have done some settings that are wrong, or you have interacted with the wrong function, you tend to pop up with the extreme gas settings. And if somebody has, like, let's say you have 2 ETH in your hot wallet, for example, you might be a baller for all I know. You might just go ahead and hit the button and send the transaction through. Please be careful when you're doing this. Always check, always ask somebody. If you're not sure, come back to Surgence, ask us. We will probably have somebody around that can help you. Just be careful when you're doing this, not to blow your entire wallet on wrong settings. Okay, so with that being said, I am done with my presentation already. Laksa, I think you can stop the recording. Okay, so with that